I think there's one conversation that every adult child needs to have with their aging parent. Most never have it, and I think the cost of the silence is enormous. I think it's the conversation about what happens when they can't manage on their own anymore. Like, where do they want to live? Like, who's going to make the decisions if they can't, right? Where the important documents are, what they want, what they don't want. Like, most people aren't having this conversation because it feels disrespectful, right? Normally, it feels like you're already burying them. It feels like you're admitting that they're getting old. So you put it off until something happens, a fall, diagnosis, a hospital discharge. And now you're making the biggest decisions of their life and maybe even yours with no information. It's usually in the hallway, right? While a discharge planner is asking what your plan is and what you're going to do in the next 24 to 72 hours. So that's what I don't want for you. So today, what I want to do is I want to walk you through exactly how to have this conversation, the opening lines that actually work, the questions that matter, the traps to avoid, and then what to do if and when your parent shuts down during this conversation. My goal by the end of this video is for you to have essentially a script that you can use to effectively have these conversations. So welcome back to the channel. If this is your first time here, lovely to see you. My name is Winston One. I'm currently studying for my certified in long-term care designation, my Georgia life insurance license, and I'm in the process of acquiring an assisted living community right now. So I'm telling you, I'm deep in this world every single day. The operational side, the financial side, and most importantly, the human side. And if you're caring for your aging parents or you're planning ahead for your own care, I want you to hit that subscribe button. We're building something special here. We're building a community of people who refuse to be blindsided by the care system. Now, quick thing before we get into it. I'm not your financial advisor, your attorney, your doctor, your agent, right? This is largely education. For your specific family situation, you should be speaking with a licensed professional in your state. Cool? All right, let's get into it. First, let's talk about why most families wait too long. And I think the recommended age to start these conversations is right around 75. I think that's the most data-backed sweet spot right now. It's old enough where that planning is critical, but it's still young enough where they have their cognitive faculties and they're still sharp enough and could participate fully in these discussions. What most families do is they wait till 85 or 90, or honestly until something happens. Why? Because three things I think make this conversation feel impossible. The first is you're worried that it'll upset your parent. You can't stand the thought of your parent not being able to take care of themselves or not being there. And I think that's worrisome for a lot of kids, right? The second thing is your parent can't stand the thought and your parent doesn't want to seem like a burden. So they typically put it off. And then the third thing that usually hinders this conversation is the whole family avoids it because no one wants to be the one that brought it up. So everyone waits and waits and waits until it's not a conversation anymore, right? Until it's a crisis decision now. And here's the thing that nobody tells you. The absolute worst time that you can have a conversation like this is at a holiday dinner or like a family gathering. And I know it sounds counterintuitive, right? You're all together. You don't see each other often. It seems efficient. Listen, it's going to be a disaster. Holiday gatherings, they carry way too much emotional weight already. Other family members are around, right? The kids are running around. Somebody is probably had a little bit of liquor in their system. I think bringing up what happens when your dad or mom can't take care of themselves anymore at Thanksgiving, I think that turns it into the thing that everyone remembers about Thanksgiving. I think the right time to have this conversation is one-on-one. So think, a walk, right? A car ride, a quiet Sunday morning, when it's just you and your parent, when there's no audience, when there's nobody that your parent has to perform for. I think that's when they typically open up. And I think that's normally the best time to have these conversations. Now, let's talk about the actual opening lines, because I don't think most families fail at this conversation, particularly because their intention is wrong. I just think that within the first 30 seconds, you lose them. You're opening up with something normally that puts your parent on the defensive, right? Think about it. Mom, we need to talk about what happens when you can't live alone anymore. Whoa, hey, you know what I'm saying? Game over. At that point, they're defensive already. The conversation is dead, or at least stalled at best. So I think there are three opening lines that actually work. Use them verbatim if you want, okay? The first one, you should say something along the lines of, hey, mom or dad, I would like to understand what you want if anything ever changed. Not because I think something is wrong, but because I think I don't want us making decisions under pressure. Okay. I think this works because it removes the threat. You're not saying anything is wrong. You're saying that you don't want to make decisions under pressure. That's a universal value. Nobody disagrees with that. The second opening line that you can use, I'm saying something along the lines of, hey, mom or dad, can we walk through your normal week, what that looks like? Like, for example, where you keep important information. I'd want to do the same for you. I think this works because it's mutual. It doesn't come across like an audit. You're actually sharing information both ways. It actually frames the conversation as an adult to adult interaction rather than a child checking on their aging parent type interaction. Okay. And then the third opening line that you can use is something along the lines of like, hey, mom or dad, I read something that made me realize that we don't really have a strong plan right now. We should probably have a plan before we need one. Can we talk for an hour sometime this week? Now, I really, really like this one because I believe that it sets up a low pressure appointment. You're not forcing them to have that conversation right now. You're actually scheduling it. And that gives them time to think. And I think it removes the surprise factor that typically makes parents shut down as well. And if you're sitting here and you're thinking, okay, but once we're actually in the conversation, what do I ask? And that's exactly why we put together our free planning guide. It walks you through the exact specific questions to cover. And it's organized by category too. So think health, finances, legal documents, right? Living preferences, end of life wishes. I want you to comment guide and I'll send it directly to you, or you can just go over to the description and grab the link from there directly. Okay. I think it's the closest thing to a script for this conversation that exists right now. And we built it specifically for you guys. Okay. So now that you're in the conversation, what actually matters? I think most families will try and cover everything in one sitting, and that's a mistake. I think this is going to be 3 or 4 conversations over a few months, not one. Here's what you should prioritize. During that first conversation, you should prioritize their preferences and values. So think what's most important to them as they age. So independence, comfort, whether that's family closeness, whether it's staying at home. If they had to choose, what would they perfect? What would they protect first? This guides every decision later on. The second conversation, this is where you focus and hone in on the location of important documents. What's their will? Where's their will? Do they have a power of attorney? Where's their healthcare directives? If they don't have any of this, then it can become a conversation on its own. But at least you know now, right? You want to think about where do they bank? Who's their doctor? Who's their attorney if they have one? In this conversation, you're not asking for control. You're asking where to find things if there's an emergency. And you should offer to do the same as well. This really de-risks the conversation on both ends, okay? The third conversation, after the first two, should be more focused on healthcare decisions and their end-of-life wishes. This one is typically the hardest one. That's why I usually save it for last. You want to ask, what do they do if they can't make decisions for themselves anymore? Who do they want making those medical decisions on their behalf? Right? What quality of life, what does quality of life mean to them? I think these conversations, they're never one and done conversations, and they're never binary. They evolve over time, and think about them as a living, breathing document. They're going to change. Once you get your parent thinking about certain things, they're going to naturally evolve and progress and ask questions and look into things. And well, honestly, the way that Siri and Alexa and all of them is moving these days, once you start having these conversations in the presence of some AI, you'll start seeing some ads, you'll start seeing some Instagram reels and TikToks on all this stuff, and it'll create more questions in your parents. I want you to know that, okay? Now, what if your parent shuts down? Because they are prone to in this scenario. I think a lot of parents will say something along the lines of, I'm fine, we don't need to talk about this right now, don't worry about me, God's got me, I'll plan, I'll let you know when something changes. Now, if and when that happens, don't push, don't argue. I don't want you to make it a confrontation. Simply just take a step back, wait, try a different angle next time. Sometimes the entry point is something usually practical and small. You can say something like, hey, mom or dad, can you help me understand your normal week? Or, hey, mom and dad, can you send me a screenshot of your medication list? I just want to know where it is just in case I need to find it. Or, hey, dad, where do you keep your important paperwork? I want to do the same for my own house. I think these are non-threatening and they give your parent permission to share without feeling like they're admitting weakness. That's really, really important. Okay. Oftentimes, I think once you start sharing the practical stuff, the bigger conversations, they start opening up naturally. Now, one thing that typically catches families off guard is if you have siblings, I want you to have these conversations together when you can. Remember, not a big family gathering and not necessarily like a sibling tribunal zeroed in on your parents. I don't think you need a committee for this. I just want you to have these conversations collaboratively as a family, because what typically happens is if one sibling is not in the loop, they typically challenge these decisions later. And trust me, nothing tears families apart faster than disagreements over a parent's care and how that was handled and where they get to live and all of this stuff. Please just get everyone on the same page early. And these conversations and these situations, they are a lot more palatable. Okay. So let's wrap this thing up here. The talk with your aging parent, I think, is the most important conversation that you'll have with them. And the cost of avoiding it is enormous. I want you to start before age 75. If you can, start at 65, start at 60 if they're game for it. I want you to start one-on-one, not at a holiday dinner, but whichever one of the siblings is group leader, have that person start. And then please pull the rest of the siblings in so that we're all aligned. And then I want you to open with one of the 3 lines that I gave you. They typically remove the defensiveness, cover their preferences first, cover their documents later, and then cover their healthcare wishes after. Make sure it's multiple conversations. Please don't try and cram all of this into a 30-minute phone call or a 15-minute visit. And if and when they do shut down, please don't push. Try a very practical entry point next time. Loop your siblings in early, get them on board as well. And also, here's what I want you to do next. Right now, I want you to go grab our free planning guide. It walks you through the exact questions to cover, and it gives you a framework for organizing what you learn. Comment guide below. I'll send it directly to you. Or once again, you can just hit the link in the description. Now, the conversation you're avoiding now, once it becomes a crisis situation, you're not going to be able to avoid later. So please plan ahead while there's still time to plan. Once again, I'm Winston One Day. I want you guys to plan early, plan smart, and please take care of one another. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.